Welcome back to this module on the learning organization. We're going to be focusing now on mental models. We've covered systems thinking and personal mastery, and now we're moving on to mental models. And that is really about the importance of the mental model in terms of how people see themselves and see their organization and the impact that that has on their organization or community or society. As we've seen, for example, in this spiral dynamics model with the pyramid here that you've seen before, it tracks the different mental models that have evolved over time. From the survival base to the tribal base to the power gods, into the more hierarchical order structure, into the scientific materialist, success-driven systems, into the more sensitive self, and into the integral. So all of those are different ways of seeing the world, and they radically affect the way we see our organization. And it's very important for us to understand these because they will be motivating people in different ways. Another way of looking at the spiral dynamics is through these short descriptions of the various value system codes here. So Claire Graves, the original researcher here, gave these value systems a specific code each that you can see listed next to the different colors here. And those codes really describe the basic orientation of somebody or a group in a certain context. And which orientation they adopt really influences the way they're going to see the work they have to do, how they're going to respond to challenges, and all these kind of things. So it's very important for us to be aware of which mental models are people working out of, and to make those explicit with each other. So what's the theory that you're working from? What are the basic assumptions that you're making? And as we become aware of those, then we can become more conscious as a learning organization and move forward in a way where there is clarity between those different mental models. So in this graphic, we can see how mental models impact society. So if we take those value systems that we've been looking at through spiral dynamics, you can see here that they're arranged from left to right, with the beige on the left all the way through to turquoise on the right. And that underneath each of them are descriptions of the various political systems that have emerged out of that mindset, and the economic systems as well. So for example, in the beige context, we were organizing ourselves in survival clans, and the economy at that level was simply eat when you're hungry. As we moved into the purple, we were looking at tribal orders as our organizing principle. And our exchange was more about mutual reciprocity. So you give me something, I give you something back. It was much more circular than our current economic system. As we moved into the red feudal empires, the economic system was about the victor gets the spoils. So the strongest is the one who ends up getting the resources. As we started to organize ourselves more in the blue system and had a kind of authoritarian democracy structure there, then it was the just who earned the rewards. So those who followed the rules, who did what was told to them, either by the head of the state or by the head of the church, for example, would be the ones to be rewarded. And now, in what's our predominant system, in the orange scientific rational mindset, which our free market economy grew out of, you can see that it's much more around each person acts on their own behalf to prosper. So this whole economic system we have is geared to encouraging individuals to make the best of who they can be, get to the top, and earn the most, therefore, through that process. As we shift out of that, we're seeing other forms of democracy emerge. For example, more social democracy, as in the Scandinavian countries, and a belief that everybody should benefit equally. And then into yellow, an understanding of how all of these different systems are appropriate in different contexts, and an economic system that looks at how the resources can be channeled to different contexts for the good and the health of the whole. And we don't really know what the turquoise is going to look like. I mean, there's some words here, but we haven't yet worked it out collectively as humanity. But very generally, we'd expect to be looking at resources focusing on life as a whole. So in this sense, we can see the importance of mental models in shaping the institutions and the structures that we create around us, and therefore how important it is to be conscious of those in our organizations. So here is another take on these developmental levels. So for now, we've been primarily focusing on the spiral dynamics model. Well, you can lay that next to a number of different developmental models. You see on the left there's Ken Wilber's, where he talks about pre-conventional, conventional, post-conventional. And further to the right, there's Suzanne Cook-Greuter's model of ego development, and then next to that, Torbert's action logics. So there's slightly different angles on the developmental question. It's like having a mountain, like that pyramid we had, with different pathways going up with a slightly different perspective, but basically coming to the same plateaus as the other lines would, but just asking slightly different questions. And so you see what this points to here is they've listed the percentage of the US population at these different levels of development. So 75% is operating at conventional. So in these areas of, in Suzanne Cook-Greuter's language, conformist, self-conscious, conscientious, achiever, expert in Torbert. So this is more the blue and orange from the spiral dynamics. And that's why we have the kind of economic systems and the kind of democratic systems that we have, because that's where the center of gravity is in terms of our mindsets. And if we look at this next table here, then we can see how these are distributed across managers and consultants, for example, in the UK or in the USA, and then more broadly across the population. So here's taking Cook-Greuter's model again and seeing that, in terms of managers in the UK, we're at 33.5% hang out at the conscientious level, that she would name it as, in the UK, whereas in the USA, there's more who are present at the self-conscious level, so her third level there. So these, the fact that you've got more or less people at different levels of development working with different mental models shapes the way that we create our organizations and our governance systems in our societies. So this just a way of framing how important the mental models piece is in terms of a learning organization, because we need to be aware of what are the different motivating factors as people look at their reality and as they engage it, become conscious of these mental models, and then design our organization to align the appropriate mental models with the different kind of functions that need to be performed in the organization. And as we become aware of them, we can be more understanding of different perspectives that people hold and help them to play the role which they have to play in the bigger context of the organization's development. So that's the end of this session. In the next session, we'll look at the final element that makes up a successful learning organization.